Right, so for those of you who recall, last year in late December, I made a video log about the absolutely horrific murder of this New York passenger, Debbie Kawam, who was cruelly set on fire by some illegal immigrant criminal by the name of Sebastian Zapata Khalil, apparently for no reason whatsoever, and who was left to burn to death with everyone just standing around watching, even pulling out their phones and filming it. And I gave very clearly, I aired my thoughts, how disgusted and horrified I was that this killing was allowed to happen. Well, fast forward 1 year later, it seems there's been another one. So this time, there was a 26-year-old woman whose name has now been identified as Bethany McGee, and as far as we can tell, we don't know a great deal about her other than the fact that she was a white woman, which I believe is relevant, and I'll get to why later, and she doesn't appear to have been a homeless woman. She was actually sat reading a book. And out of nowhere, this this by the name of Lawrence Reed, I'm going to have to censor this video because I'm incredibly angry and I don't want to fall foul of YouTube's community guidelines a second time. All the same though, I'm not going to hold back from giving out my real thoughts. This guy comes up to her. There appears to have been an argument, although we're not entirely sure. The security footage hasn't been made public yet. He poured this lighter fluid on her body and then sat her on fire and ran away. And apparently, he at the time, while he did it, he said, "Yeah, burn, bitch, burn," or something like that. And the very fact that he had this lighter fluid on his person before he boarded the train means that he already had his heart set on killing someone that day. And it should be noted that Lawrence Reed is a black man and the victim was white. Anyway, this piece of set her on fire and ran, and luckily, I don't know if this is fortunate or unfortunate, I guess it depends on what your point of view is. She wasn't killed. She's been rushed over to the hospital. I imagine she's going to wake up and come out of there with third-degree burns and look practically unrecognizable. So it's happened again. And I hate that it feels like we're becoming gradually desensitized to this kind of horrific crime. This is the second time it's happened. Although, in fairness, the act of people randomly getting killed or seriously injured on a train itself is already becoming old news. Because months ago, you may recall, there was the brutal, savage killing of Irina Zarutska on a train in Charlotte, North Carolina, again by a black man. And you know, what's really interesting is how the media have reported this, or rather, how they haven't reported this. The media seems to have gone awfully quiet. It took them, for one thing, it took quite a few days, almost a week, for them to identify the victim, even though there was apparently a Facebook group that had opened up that had apparently already confirmed her identity. And this woman, by the way, she had a profile picture of this Black Lives Matter photo filter around her. And yet, she still ended up getting attacked by the very people who she naively thought she was, the people who she naively believed that were on her side. I'm absolutely outraged and sickened by this horrific crime. And you know what really pisses me off, right? This absolute worthless sack of shit, Lawrence Reed was his name, he'd already had not 10, not 20, not 30, not 40, not 50, 72 prior arrests. This guy had a rap sheet that would have made even George Floyd blush. And he'd already been put in prison for punching a woman in the face and slapping another old man. I think actually he punched a social worker in the face and knocked her out unconscious. And the reason, why was he allowed to walk the streets anyway? Well, apparently it's because the last judge who presided over his case was this ugly fat by the name of Judge Teresa Gonzalez. I mean, look at this. Another diversity hire who no doubt possibly let him go free purely because of ideological reasons. And this has been allowed to happen as a result. There's just so much about this case that angers me, and I'm not even connected with this murder in any meaningful way. I didn't know the victim. I don't even live in the country where this has happened. But this just viscerally angers me. You know, I feel like my rights as a human are being violated by the fact that I had to read this. Ugh. And it drives me to exhaustion knowing that people are talking about how, oh, well, this time he's going to go to prison for life.
Reed had plenty of second chances by the criminal justice system, and as a result, you have an innocent victim in the hospital fighting for her life. Because of the swift action of CPD, ATF, and our law enforcement partners, there will be no other chances for Mr. Reed. Thank you.
Like that means anything. If there was any sense of justice in this world, that guy would be dancing at the end of a rope. In fact, he never would have been released from prison in the first place. Now, how much of a worthless piece of shit do you have to be to get arrested 72 times? I mean, honestly, my sympathy is completely gone once you've been arrested more than 5. People like this, there is no excuse, there's no reason to let filth like this in the world. There needs to be, we need to have a giant cleansing of the niche to prevent these animals from being allowed to exist in the same places as us. I mean, just imagine, does anyone have any reason to think that if he gets released, which we can't say is impossible, supposing he got released and was allowed to wander the streets again, do we not have any reason to think that he'd do it again? Like, is there any reason to think that he's sorry for his actions? Or even if it was, that should mean anything? Because I remember reading the newspaper article acting about how he was saying he'd like to represent himself, and he wants to spend the rest of his life in prison. And people are even theorizing that that's why he committed this crime, so that he could spend the rest of his life in prison. Like, what the does any of that matter? Why are we wasting time splitting hairs talking about the possible motives that this madman, this lunatic, decided to set this woman on fire? The criminal mind is beyond comprehension. It's a waste of time to speculate why these horrific crimes happen in the first place. But that's not what the point is of restorative justice. Look, I believe none of this speculation on why he might have done it, I don't believe any of this is helpful or useful in this case. Really, he needs to be given the death penalty, and he needs to be given it now. That guy should be dancing at the end of the rope. Like, if you behave like an animal, you should be treated like one. And what do we do with animals? We don't put animals in prison for the rest of their lives. No, we put them down. We destroy them. And yet, weirdly, this distinction is made when humans from a certain ethnicity, in large numbers, in certain contexts, for some reason, we don't do the sensible thing and get rid of them. This killing could not have been allowed to happen at any other time. You got to understand that white people in America, especially in majority-minority cities, places like New York, Chicago, LA, they're living under some kind of invisible death sentence because every now and then these horrific incidents it's always a possibility that one of them could be subjected to an horrific crime like this, that their lives could end up as a cautionary tale. we know next to nothing about the victim, Bethany McGee, other than the fact that she was apparently a supporter of Black Lives Matter. She was just a casual strap hanger sat on a Chicago train reading a book. We know nothing about why this attack occurred. It may well be that there was no reason, but she 100% did not deserve any of this. And I say this even as somebody who has no connection to Chicago. None of the other people in Chicago deserve this either. Anyway, this piece of shit, Lawrence Reed, he needs to dance at the end of the rope. They need to get rid of all these silly, fake human rights provisions that prevent the death penalty from being carried out. Like, if you read stories like this in today's modern climate and you're still against the death penalty, then frankly, I don't even want you breathing the same oxygen as me. You're not a serious person. The only thing I can infer from your stance on being anti-death penalty is that you like these kinds of things and you want more of them to happen. Like, this story has made me so angry. Stories like this, they make me emotionally dysregulated. I can't think straight. Now, I was just sat there minding my own business when suddenly this story appears in my newsfeed, and now I'm so livid because I know nothing's going to come of this. I mean, how many more people are going to be set on fire on a public train before there's any kind of meaningful change that prevents this from happening? I don't give a shit that he's probably going to spend the rest of his life in prison. I don't give a shit that they're probably going to do something like, I don't know, have more security staff on the public trains, or that they're going to invest more in security cameras. None of that is pertinent to the issue at hand. We're not stupid. We weren't born yesterday. We all know the real reason why she was targeted. Even if we don't have the full story, we can get a reasonably good idea. Because we have no reason to suspect that either the victim or the assailant knew each other before this interaction took place. He was looking for someone to kill. He went on board the train with some lighter fluid. He had his mind set on murder. And who did he pick? He picked a white woman who was sat there minding her own business, reading a book, who didn't have the faintest idea what was going on. Because white people in America are under attack. How many more Laken Rileys? How many more Austin Metcalfs? How many more Cannon Hinants? How many more Bethany McGees? How many more Debbie Kawams? How many more of these cautionary tales do we need to be subjected to before things change? White lives don't matter in this day and age. If I sound like Nick Fuentes right now, it's because he's right. This is not a good day and age to be a white American, especially not on public transport. If you're a white person and you're taking public transport in an American, highly diversified metropolitan area, you're rolling a dice with death. You're sat in a train car with people who, if they won't murder you, they'll probably look the other way and pretend they didn't see anything while you're being murdered.
Even as she was on the ground trying to put herself out and is rolling on the ground, desperately trying to put out the fire, no one came to her aid until she was able to get off the train and to the platform.
And if you try and do anything, if you try to stop someone from committing murder, you try to intervene, then you'll get put in prison, like Daniel Penny did. You guys remember a couple of years ago, Daniel Penny on the New York subway. He was that 24-year-old Marine who tried to intervene when this crazy black lunatic by the name of Jordan Neely started acting like a lunatic, saying he was going to kill somebody. He physically restrained him, and he ended up choking him to death. Well, actually, it was the fentanyl that did him in. And what happened? He got his ass hauled all the way through the courts. He had the system make an example of him. Even though he wasn't found guilty at the end, that's still what happens. It sickens me, man. It pisses me off. I need to stay away from the news for the sake of my own mental health. Because stories like this, They drive me to apoplexy and then despair, because realistically, there's nothing I know that there's nothing that I can do in this situation. This serious, savage attack, this unprovoked and savage outrage against humanity, it's never going to be answered. Not in any meaningful way. And nor will this was not the first time that an innocent white woman has been targeted on a public train, and it certainly won't be the last. And the media doesn't care about these stories, because as far as they're concerned, white people have no recourse to the law or the public institutions. In some ways, I'd even go so far as to say they probably think that these attacks are deserved because of societal privilege or, white privilege or whatever. Well, what does white privilege mean when being sat on a train car can get you set on fire for no reason? Anyway, I'm tired, man. Yeah. Anyway, I hope you guys are doing better than I am right now, because this absolute Lawrence Reed, really, he should get the chair. And so should every other black who preys upon an innocent white woman. And this judge who decided to let him walk around because of diversity and systemic oppression. The only systemic oppression that exists now is the one that white Americans face, law-abiding white Americans face, because they're the ones who are being targeted unfairly by both the system and by the animals who are let to run around free by the system. Because this is an example of what they call anarcho-tyranny. It's where criminals are never punished. The system basically allows criminals to roam around and do whatever the hell they want, to terrorize the innocent, law-abiding population. But the people who speak out and criticize the system, they're the ones who get the shaft. They're the ones who get the full force of the law. It's the same in America. It's the same over here. It's the same all over Europe and the Anglosphere. It pisses me off that nothing's ever going to change anyway, anytime soon. Anyway, I got to leave now. You guys take care. This has been Tracking. Hope you guys are doing better than I am right now.